As has been par the course, we'll open with Fillon, who is, as ever, enmeshed in scandal and controversy. In the last video, I hinted at similarities between Fillon and populism, and the comments still ring true. Fillon has recently suggested there to be an orchestrated attack on him led by the Hollande government to discredit him. On national television, Fillon remarked, "In recent history, a head of state has never gone so far in illegality. Hollande decided to eliminate the candidate who represents an alternative." This, of course, comes in the wake of the continuing formal investigation against him, and also the newly opened investigation levelled against his wife, with the embarrassing accusation that the family forged documents to account for Penelope's received salary. Perhaps what is even more significant is the role Russia has started to play in proceedings, or rather how Russia is being used politically, regardless of whether accusations of their involvement are true or not. In 2015, Fillon's consultancy company was said to have set up a meeting between a Lebanese businessman and Vladimir Putin for a fee of €50,000, an accusation which the Kremlin has deemed fake news but has been used by French press to tighten alleged associations between Fillon and Russia. On Friday the 31st of March, Fillon held his press conference on foreign policy and defence. This can be seen as an attempt to get away from the controversy and return to a policy-oriented discussion. Penelope Gate was never mentioned, but of course Russia dominated the discourse. Fillon's conciliatory approach to Russia can be seen as far back as the Republican primaries, in which Fillon spoke out against sanctions against Russia and backed plans to work together to combat Islamism. This clearly separated Fillon from Alain Juppé, his main and more traditional adversary in the race. Anyway, at the conference, Fillon called for Russia to become a great ally of France and stressed the necessity to cooperate to combat the greatest threat to the global order, Islamic totalitarianism, and also dismissed claims that Russia was interfering in the elections as fantasies. As alluded to in my last video on the elections, Macron has accused Russian agencies of attempting to derail his campaign through cyber attacks. Recently, others have come out and suggested Russian interference. On March the 30th, American Republican Senator and head of the US Senate Intelligence Committee, Richard Burr, said, "I think it's safe by everybody's judgment that the Russians are actively involved in the French elections." Russian media outlets have also come under fire. NATO recently decried Russian news agency Sputnik as a Kremlin misinformation machine, with its alleged pro-Trump, anti-EU, pro-Putin bias. Incidentally, and maybe not coincidentally, the only poll in France that finds François Fillon first in the presidential race is Sputnik's. Every other pollster places Fillon in a firm third place, and French authorities have urged readers to exercise caution when reading this material. Indeed, Russia does have vested interests against a Macron presidency. Macron has stated he would continue sanctions against Russia, and thus it's not all that surprising to see state-owned Russian media backing other more cordial candidates. Marine Le Pen has of course been embroiled in all of this too. It's long been claimed that she borrowed significant amounts of capital from Russian banks to finance her campaign. Money troubles have long plagued the party, and this has often been used to increase party publicity. French banks have abjectly refused to loan to the Front National, which has given the party an opportunity to decry foul play and increase their outsider status. In 2014, the party borrowed €9 million from First Czech Russian Bank, and recently it came to light that a further €3 million was sought after in June of 2016. Of course, this raises the odd contradiction of an ostensibly nationalist party seeking financial backing from a foreign nation. In any case, last year, party treasurer responded to the situation thusly: "We have an obligation to raise the money. We will go to banks in any country, whether it's China, Russia, or the United States. We don't care. The only thing that matters is the bank's reputation." Although, let's be fair here. The party needs the money, French banks are refusing to help them, as they would other parties, and so what other option do the National Front have? It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. The money scandal, separate from Russian involvement, is still raging on, with the EU still requesting Marine Le Pen pays back funds allegedly used for activities outside of her Brussels responsibilities. And we also have a newly posited scandal involving fake jobs. These scandals are less perilous for a party like the Front National though. They already position themselves as outsiders. Having the establishment close ranks and level accusations during election time only serves to reify the image the party wants for themselves anyway. In sharp contrast to Fillon, it should be noted, who was initially hailed the French anti-Trump. And now we come back to Russia again. as Le Pen had a meeting with Vladimir Putin on Friday the 24th of March. Of course, this increased speculations of financial shadiness. Putin himself stated explicitly, "Of course I know that the election campaign in France is actively developing. We do not want to influence events in any way, but we reserve the right to talk to representatives of all the country's political forces, just as our partners in Europe and the United States do." In any case, the meeting certainly offers Marine Le Pen some clout as a leader, and may be seen positively by the French electorate in order to quell the increasing tensions between Russia and EU nations. Macron, on the other hand, has doubled down on his rejection of Putin and has remained very critical of the Russian military presence and annexation of Crimea. And now to Macron. More and more establishment faces are defecting from their traditional party allegiances to back the new centrist upstart. In the last video, we covered François Bayrou, the centrist who traditionally aligned with the Republicans and who this year has passed up his presidential bid in favour of Macron. The latest news development is former Prime Minister Manuel Valls defecting from the Socialist Party to openly endorse Macron. Of course, Valls isn't the only one, but he is the most significant. Others include the French Defence Minister, the Biodiversity Minister, and the Junior Sports Minister. Now, this isn't necessarily a positive for Macron. On the plus side, it does a lot to subdue accusations that he's inexperienced. With political heavyweights closing ranks alongside him, he certainly does have experienced allies to help steer the ship. Also, it aids his platform in claiming he is something that transcends traditional political divides, a place welcoming of both left and right. Problem is, this also increases the impression that he ultimately stands for nothing but business as usual. François Hollande has been the most unpopular president in the history of the Fifth Republic, and so a flocking of his cabinet to Macron's isn't necessarily a bonus for a French electorate eager for change. François Fillon said as such, commenting on the defection. He remarked, "With Valls' endorsement, it is now clear that Hollande government is going into extra time. Need a change in power. Hollande's whole team is surrounding Macron. It's what I've always said. Emmanuel Macron is François Hollande." So why is this happening? Why do traditional political cleavages seem to have broken down so thoroughly? We've had the decimation of Fillon beset by scandal, and the left has found itself in disarray. Why? Largely due to the failure of Benoît Hamon and Jean-Luc Mélenchon to come to an agreement. Mélenchon is a fiery critic of the established order and calls for the demise of the Fifth Republic. His platform is his own movement named Unsubmissive France, founded only a year ago after defecting from the Socialist Party in 2008. He has the support of the French Communist Party and is now, for the first time ever, ahead of his former Socialist Party in the polls. He can be seen as a traditional leftist with emphasis on wealth redistribution and workers' rights. Benoît Hamon, the socialist candidate, is actually quite similar in this regard and represents a break from the increasingly neoliberal bent of the socialists under Hollande's government. Manuel Valls would fall into this neoliberal camp. The problem is Hamon and Mélenchon occupy the same electoral space, although have some key differences that neither candidate has been able to overcome to forge an alliance. For example, Mélenchon is in favour of total EU reform or an exit of the Union. Hamon favours increasing integration. The left is thus split almost squarely down the middle. The result is a traditional left that's divided and thus almost certainly not getting into the second round, a right-wing candidate beset by scandal, and a Front National that's gaining ground without any viable opposition, and now enter Macron. Macron is the embodiment of the Republican Front, the coalition of politicians and electorate blocs that voted en masse in 2002 to combat Jean-Marie Le Pen. Defections to Macron are not the result of some deep ideological allegiance, although Macron is a neoliberal in a very similar vein to the Socialist Party under Hollande, but designed to combat the very real possibility of a Le Pen victory without a candidate the majority of French can rally around in the second round of voting. Indeed, this is stressed by the politicians themselves. Why did Manuel Valls defect from his own party to Macron? Well, in his own words, "I don't think we can take any risks with the Republic. There is a risk, and that is first and foremost what is pushing me to act, of a National Front victory. I am convinced, unfortunately, that the National Front's numbers are much higher than the polls are telling us." The same was the story with François Bayrou, who cited Marine Le Pen as his reason for siding with Macron also. And again, as I stated in my last video on the elections, and sorry to end things on a similar note, Hollande has stated explicitly that his ultimate duty is to prevent a Front National government. Marine Le Pen had this to say on Valls' defection. This confirms that Emmanuel Macron has become a mere cog in the grand plan to rescue Hollandland. His candidacy is manifestly under the tutelage of the outgoing government, under the tutelage of a system that wants to find new jobs for itself at all cost. We knew that Macron's bid was empty, now we know that it is nothing but a veneer for the system. This is precisely what it appears to be becoming, a vehicle through which the establishment can rally around, both left and right, to form a grand coalition capable of squashing Le Pen at the ballot. This channel has covered populism in a lot of detail, indeed much more detail than many would care to wish for. In any case, a common thread often found among the narratives of rising or risen populists is, when the traditional left and right merge, when they become indistinguishable, the populists can posit themselves to be the true and only alternative, the only viable voice providing the possibility for change. Marine Le Pen still seems set to get into the second round. There is a chance his defections to Macron will hinder him rather than help him. I'll keep you updated. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked the video, please don't forget to click like. If you didn't, click dislike and drop a comment to tell me why. Massive thank you to all my Patreons as always. If you like what I do, and if it's within your means to do so, then please do consider donating yourself. Thanks again, and until next time.